Hi, welcome to Connecting Greatness. These are conversations with entrepreneurial minds. And today my guest is Jane Zhang, the Executive Director of TechSoup Canada. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you for having me here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, my pleasure. Now let's talk a little bit about you. There's many things we're going to talk about today, but I'd like to start off by letting people know, and I want to learn too, actually, a little bit about you. So
Sure.
Jane, where are you from?
Oh, that is a really good question. I usually have problems to answer that question properly because I was actually born in the jungles of China, between the borders of China and Laos, at the end of the Cultural Revolution. So that is the actual answer where I'm from, but usually I just tell people I'm from Vancouver.
Okay, great. So I think that's fantastic. Let's talk. I'm going to say, I was going to make a bad Tarzan joke, but forget that.
Oh, you can totally make a Tarzan joke. I'm used to it. Yeah.
Okay, so being from Vancouver, what brought you to Toronto?
It was a boy, I will admit it. The boy
Love.
got a job. It was love. And I was working at the University of British Columbia at the time, so I was actually a system administrator. And I looked to the opportunity to change my career.
Right.
So that's why I came here.
You grew up, you studied in Vancouver as well?
I spent a lot of time in Vancouver, so I went to university there and worked there for a period of time.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So you moved to Toronto, and now we're talking TechSoup Canada. How did this come about?
So when I first came to Toronto, I wanted to figure out what I want to do with my life. So I spent some time being an actress, or self-proclaimed actress, if you want to call that. And then I worked for an insurance company as a programmer. That almost destroyed me. Then
The acting or the programming?
The programming. The acting was great, but the programming made me realize that all of the skills I had could have been better used.
Right.
So I started looking at opportunities and actually discovered there's tons of opportunities in the nonprofit sector, and that's kind of eventually how TechSoup Canada started.
Right. Well, and in the acting industry, most people don't make money at all. So you think that maybe that kind of drove you to the not.
That taught me the meaning of not-for-profit.
Right.
So through the acting piece, but no, I'm joking here.
Yeah.
But then the acting piece actually got me thinking about the importance of telling stories and raising awareness, which is also what got me interested into the nonprofit sector, because that's a great bunch of people doing excellent work. And I saw a real need to help them tell their story. And of course, I wasn't a good storyteller, so I had to really think about what are my strengths, and I'm good with IT, so I thought, well, why not help them tell their stories through the use of technology.
Fantastic. So as a, it sounds to me, is it that most people work in IT, in not-for-profits? Is it because of the philanthropic need to give back? Like, is that?
Yeah, I would say that is a common theme in the not-for-profit sector. People definitely don't go into the nonprofit sector because they want to get a high-paying job and buy a Ferrari, I can tell you that, or they're not doing it because it's the most glamorous job in the world.
Right.
But what it does give them is a sense of satisfaction that they have either made a difference in their community or for a particular group of people that cannot speak for themselves, or better yet, they really feel that they're making the world a better place. I know it sounds corny, but it is something that has a lot of meaning for everybody that goes into the nonprofit sector.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you on that. What, this might be a bit of a topic, I'm sure that you've faced this before. A not-for-profit, in some people's eyes, is a business.
It is, absolutely. It's a business of serving people.
Right, it's in the business of serving people. Now, if you go out and you were to survey or talk to other small business owners, not-for-profits are given certain advantages, whether it be taxes or God knows what. There's a whole slew of them. I'm not an accountant, God knows.
Yep.
But do you feel that those advantages are warranted, or can you understand where another small business who's working every day to build itself could be frustrated that they're not giving these same kind of advantages?
I can understand their perception of where they're coming from, but I do want to explain the difference between a small business and a not-for-profit, your traditional not-for-profit.
Please do.
So in a small business sense, if I work hard, I'm selling a product, I'm generating revenue. So you're rewarded immediately through your actions of what you do as a business.
Okay.
So in a way, businesses, whether or not you succeed or fail, has to do with, am I making money? Mm-hmm. Check or no, right? But for the nonprofit sector, it's different because most nonprofits are not selling something. They're providing services. And the revenue doesn't come from the provision of those services. It comes from foundations or donations. So in a way, it's a different cycle. And this is something that I think is both a good thing, but also something that nonprofits struggle with. And I can talk to how we can look at other opportunities like social enterprises, which is actually a lot more similar to a business, right? So in a nonprofit, somebody's paying you to do the work, but they're not necessarily rewarding you based on the work that you do.
Interesting.
Right, so if you put that into the small business sense, is if I pay you a flat fee mm-hmm. for a certain amount of work, and I may, at my discretion, tell you to do twice the amount of work for the same pay. That's kind of how it works in the nonprofit sector. So you get a grant for $5,000 to do a particular project.
Right.
Great. Next year you write the grant again for $5,000. You probably are expected to do different amount of work. So it's not a direct correlation. And that's why, in a way, I think a lot of the perceived advantages or tax benefits that nonprofits get isn't really an advantage per se.
Interesting.
Right?
Interesting.
It's just a different model.
Okay, so how did TechSoup come about for you? Is this a company that you started?
Well, we're still being incubated, so officially I'm not even a company yet.
Oh.
So we're being incubated by the Center for Social Innovation. So right now, officially, we're in an incubated project, but our model is that of a social enterprise company.
So is this something where, similar to Mars or any of these, there's other incubators, so it doesn't matter that you're not-for-profit, this is a wonderful place that helps incubate various types of businesses. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about that. And what's the name of it again? Center
for Social Innovation. They actually have 3 different locations right now. Right. The first one is I should know where I'm working. Queen and Sabadina, and then they opened another one in the Annex, and then recently, actually 4 locations. Correction. They just launched Regent Park. See, I'm having trouble keeping up with them.
They're doing
so
growing
well.
And
the one that is the most interesting is they just opened one in New York City.
Wow.
Yep. So Tanya Sermon is the CEO of the Center for Social Innovation. Mm-hmm. And what I really admire about the center is their ability to bring together people from all walks of life, be it a small business, a social enterprise, a nonprofit, or even individuals, and allow them to be able to collaborate in a very organic way.
Fantastic.
And then they try to incubate projects that they think are promising. So it's a very, very interesting place to be, and I love it.
So when's the big graduation day? How do you know when TechSoup graduates from being in incubation phase to being in full-fledged?
That's a really good question. I think that is, it really depends on where CSI, that's our short for Center for Social Innovation, not the crime scene investigators.
Right, yeah, no,
okay.
I was it really depends.
Yeah, it depends on where CSI is going, where TechSoup wants to go. So we are looking at graduation, but we're also looking at ways we can collaborate ongoing in the future, because we do believe very strongly in the work that they do, and I think there's a lot of interesting areas where it overlaps with us.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Fantastic. So why don't we take a quick break, and when we come back, I'd like to go a little deeper into what exactly TechSoup is and what you do and what your mandate is, okay?
Certainly.
We're sitting down with Ms. Jane Zhang, the Executive Director of TechSoup Canada. We'll be right back on Connecting Greatness. Hi, welcome back to Connecting Greatness, Conversations with Entrepreneurial Minds, and today I'm sitting down with Ms. Jane Zhang, the Executive Director of TechSoup Canada. And now we're going to talk a little bit about TechSoup Canada. Jane, talk to me about TechSoup Canada.
All right. So as we were saying before, I used to work for an insurance company as a programmer. And I left that job very, very sad because I realized all of my training was essentially making this insurance company make money off of people. So I call it the bus factor. If the bus hits you and you die tomorrow, how would you look at your life and your contribution to things around you? And I eventually got involved in the nonprofit sector. So I was working on a project called the Partnership Platform Project. We help nonprofits find tech volunteers to help them with technology within their organization. And that's how I came upon TechSoup in the US. So TechSoup actually started by a guy named Bruce in 1987 who literally drove around in a truck in Silicon Valley and got all the companies to donate old software, which then he then distributed to nonprofits. Oh. So from that man became the organization, which is now called TechSoup Global. They built a very robust product donations program, working with different IT companies like Microsoft, Adobe, Symantec, Cisco, and offering new donated software and hardware to the nonprofit sector.
So it'd be kind of like now that Windows 8's out.
We have Windows 8.
Well,
the same day. Yes. So that's what's amazing about the program. And what they realized is that they didn't want to just to make that difference in the US. They wanted to do it on a global scale. So around that time is when I was talking about them pretty much at every meeting. So you need to go to TechSoup Global's website. You need to go and try and get donations. And after a while, I thought, hey, why are we getting it from the US? Why don't we have a Canadian presence that can speak on behalf of nonprofit organizations in Canada, can look at what the technology needs are in Canada? Because as much as I like to be the American cousin, we are kind of different. So we then started conversations with TechSoup Global, and eventually NCSI agreed to incubate us, and we became TechSoup Canada.
Fantastic. So now your mandate is to help
nonprofits with technology, and we do that through various different things. One of our main programs is the product donations program, obviously. We work with 28 donor partners right now. So like I said, Microsoft is one of our biggest donors. The day that Windows 8 launches, we have Windows 8 in the donations program. To give you an example of how great the donations program is, Microsoft Office 2010. If I were to walk across the street and go to Best Buy and buy the Ultimate version, it's probably going to cost me $500. So that's a lot of money for a small nonprofit, right? If I have 5 staff, that's a lot of money. But if I go through TechSoup's donations program, what I'm getting is the donated software through Microsoft. What I pay is a small administration fee, essentially to verify that I'm a nonprofit and I do the things I say in my mission, that kind of thing. So I'm paying $33 for that admin fee for that copy of Microsoft Office. That right away is direct cost savings for the nonprofit organization itself. That's money they can redirect to programs and services elsewhere. In addition, instead of me writing to, say, Microsoft and say, hey, can you give me Office, and then ask Adobe, hey, can you give me Photoshop, which they'll probably have a million other organizations asking the same thing, through the TechSoup Canada program, it's all aggregated. So I just send in my documentation once, and then I have over 300 products to choose from. So that makes it a lot easier for me as a small nonprofit to get the tools that I need when I need it.
So is this the kind of thing where with the software that some businesses might not need Windows 8, and you could give them a different version of Windows because it's enough for what their needs are, or is it always the most advanced?
So we have XP right now. We have Windows 7 and Windows 8. So, and then we work directly with Microsoft. I think they donate about $30 million worth of software to us a year.
And is this something that they get a tax receipt for because you're not for profit? They get Or
not that I know of. This is really, I mean, for different donors, it's different. Most of the donors, I will tell you, is doing it as part of their corporate social responsibility. That's part of their philanthropy. Yeah.
Oh, don't be shy to mention any of them during our conversation if the name happens to come up. It's nothing wrong with acknowledging people that are giving back.
Absolutely.
So, so TechSoup, what a normal day for you at TechSoup right now?
Right. So as I was saying, our main program is a donations program. We have, starting tomorrow, possibly 7 full-time staff. It has grown from 1 4 years ago. So it's very exciting. Normal day for us has to do with part of our team will be helping nonprofit organizations with the donations program. But we also have team members that is actively producing content about how to use the tools. So it's not just about giving the tools to the organization, it's how do you even know what tools are out there, and how do you even think about what you need as an organization? And then how would you connect with experts that you may need to talk to in order to actually teach you to be able to use the tools properly?
Right.
So we try to call it the tools piece, but there's training, talent, as well as knowledge.
Fantastic. So a not-for-profit is there, your team will go in, set everything up. What are they're missing?
So because we're such a small team and we're actually trying to help as many nonprofit organizations as possible, we don't tend to work directly with a nonprofit one-on-one. So we try to produce our content so it's as relevant as possible to as many organizations as possible. Right now we have probably about 20,000 organizations in our database that we're helping. So we do need to, and there's 7 of us, but we are trying to look at how to selectively help certain organizations, and then what we learn from helping those organizations, how do we produce content that is relevant to everybody.
Fantastic. Listen, why don't we take another quick break, and we come back, I'd like to talk about a little bit more about the technology and where businesses are and these not-for-profits, what you've seen out there where the needs lie. All right?
Yeah.
We're going to be right back on Connecting Greatness. I'm sitting down with Ms. Jane Zhang, the Executive Director of TechSoup Canada. Hi, welcome back to Connecting Greatness, conversations with entrepreneurial minds. Today I'm sitting down with Jane Zhang, the Executive Director of TechSoup Canada. Now it's time to talk technology. I am of the belief that technology is almost like an employee now. It's so prevalent, and businesses that are up on top of the advances in technology have an advantage over businesses that don't. Would you agree with that?
I would totally agree with you on that.
Okay. Now, how is the mindset of people nowadays? There are people that would say that technology is absolutely a tool, whereas it seems to be such a intricate part of the infrastructure of it connects all pieces of the business. It brings it all together. How would you define
technology?
Yeah, technology with relation to business.
No problem. The role of technology in an organization or a business, I like to call it the Star Trek effect.
Star Trek effect.
Yes. So I don't know if you guys watch Star Trek. I am a huge Trekkie. In Star Trek, Captain Kirk cannot do anything without the ship.
Right.
Or more specifically, the computer. Yes?
Okay.
He kind of barks commands and he usually says computer and do whatever else. Yes? Technology is that. It really should be a critical part of all aspects of your business. It exists to assist you. It will not think for you. The ship will not decide for itself that it should be fighting the Klingons. It will never do that. The captain of the ship needs to know the direction of where they're going, how are they going to engage all of the extraterrestrials that they come in contact with, right?
Right.
The ship merely facilitates a lot of the actions.
So what you're saying is we don't need to worry about a Terminator 3 effect?
No.
Where
No, until we invent AI, I think we're safe.
We're safe?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, so technology will never think for you. You still have to, as a business owner or a nonprofit organization, do the thinking yourself. So you have to drive it, you have to be Captain Kirk.
Right.
Or Captain Picard, you can pick your captains, right?
So what you're probably inferring is that there are a lot of businesses out there that
they depend
have crappy ships.
Yes, they have crappy ships. They also think the ship can do the thinking for them.
Right.
So they think of the technology as a solution. If I have this particular technology, I'm safe, I'm good, I'm okay as a business. That is not the case. So you're basically getting this really crappy ship that you know nothing about. You don't have a manual, you don't have a pilot, and you're like, well, I got the ship, I'm good. Well, you can't fly it anywhere if you don't know how it works.
Right.
If you're not maintaining it, well, never mind flying, you might explode, right? So technology is the ship that helps you to get from point A to B.
Well, most companies have IT people. Now, how would you rate, do you think most IT people are really on top of the game, or is it a situation where they've become, I've spoken with other people that believe that it's been like the smartest guy in the room who watches the most YouTube videos. It seems to be the person that's in charge of IT. How do you feel the situation is right now in business?
I think the problem with businesses a lot of the time when it comes to IT is they think of it as an entirely different thing. It's this black box that sits to the side. It has nothing to do with their business. And what they need is somebody who kind of knows a little bit about the black box to drive it. So that is very dangerous because you're taking something that is core to your business and you're giving the control of it, the driving part of it, to somebody else who may or may not understand your business processes.
Well, I know that the first company that I worked at with my family, we really didn't mess with the person in charge of IT. Because that was something that seemed so foreign to us.
Yes.
Do you think that mentality still exists in a lot of businesses today?
It still exists, and I think it needs to change. And technology is changing in a way that's going to force people to change as well. So again, I'm going to use the Star Trek idea.
Okay.
In Star Trek, you can go anywhere on the ship and you can talk to the ship. It gives you what you need. Captain Picard used to walk around with this thing, I think called a PAD, a personal assistant device.
Okay.
I'm not going to say what it sounds like, something Apple that put out that looks just like it.
Right.
Just saying.
It is ironic that everything that's ever
ironic,
been shown
right?
in these shows seems to be appearing nowadays.
Yeah,
But
so
anyway.
the 3D printing of food, it sounds a lot like Captain Picard going Earl Grey hot.
Right.
Just saying. So a lot of what you're seeing is there, but what's really interesting about Star Trek isn't about the technology. The technology is kind of invisible. It's there.
Right.
It's there to help you make things easier. And I think that's how people should be thinking about technology today. Right, so technology now exists on my smartphone. I can edit documents on my smartphone. I can share documents with people around the world. I can have a conference call with anybody in the world very easily. So I don't think you should think of technology as this thing that's new that you don't understand. Instead, think of technology as this thing that helps you do what you need to get done.
Right.
And make it as easy as possible and as efficient as possible.
Well, it sounds to me that requires a continual maintenance. No?
It does, but I think what it requires is a shift in thinking or shift in the attitude towards technology first, right? So like you said, your family has this IT person and you just don't, that person, what that person says is the law. I think that needs to change. Is you need to tell that person, hey, actually, I want to watch Netflix on my Xbox.
Right.
Because that's, to me, more interesting to have live streaming a video whenever I want to see it as opposed to watching it on TV at a particular time. And so the IT person is still making that happen, but the decision on what to do and how it gets done becomes something that you control.
Right. Okay, so if we looked at IT like a function, another function in the company, we always assess our marketing initiatives and we measure them. We definitely have our bookkeeping audited. Is this something that I'm getting the idea, and again through other conversations I've had as well, that businesses need to start considering having their IT audited?
Yes.
If they haven't already, but is this something that would need to be done on a regular basis, or is this something that can be done like an accounting function once a year? But the idea, again, coming back to, they should have it audited like they would check any other department in their company?
I think so. I think, and I want to be a little bit specific about what we mean by auditing. It isn't just, hey, do you have money in the bank, and what does that mean? An auditor comes in and, from the financial perspective, will ask you, what do you do as a business?
Right.
How do you actually generate money? Where does it go? And how do you, what does the cash flow look like? And then they provide you an audited report. So it's tied in directly with your business processes.
Okay.
Right. So a lot of the time when organizations or companies thinking about, what do I need to do with my IT, they talk about having some sort of an IT inventory. That's not an audit, because it just says, do I have 3 keyboards and 2 mice and 1 monitor? It's not integrated into what they're actually doing as a business.
Do you do that for the charities that you work with?
We do have a series called Technology Planning on our website, but we don't do that in depth. So we will basically guide organizations towards thinking about, okay, what do we mean by technology planning? And what we're hoping for them to do is actually find professionals that are experienced at doing these kind of audits or strategic planning to actually do that for them.
So Jane, the IT in a company is such an integral part of this business here. Some people are calling it the 4th utility. Like, it's just, you can't live without your heat, your hydro, your water, and IT is being referred to as being almost acknowledged by some in that vein. Would you agree with that?
I would. I mean, I'm sure everyone has heard about cloud, going to the cloud technologies. What's happening more and more is our dependence not just on the computer, but the internet connection. I think it's not so many years ago you don't have to have internet connection at home. I would like to think that most people now will have some sort of an internet access on their computer. And a lot of businesses are actually moving the core parts of their business to the cloud, which makes it a lot easier for them to be able to access it anywhere, anytime.
Does that not scare you though? Don't you think that, I know that maybe not so much for the younger generation, but I know that if I mentioned something like that to my father about moving the core part of your business to the cloud, then it's like saying, well, if somebody chooses to turn it off or somebody chooses to take it away from me, they can. Do you run into that, or how do you feel about that?
I think it's the same risk as if you had a server on premise. If the electricity goes out in your building, your server will go down. If the hard drive on your server dies and you don't have a properly configured server, all of your information will be gone. So it doesn't matter what you do, there's always going to be risks. And this is why making sure you're planning things out from the get-go is going to help you, right? What a lot of small businesses and organizations end up doing, and no fault of their own, is we call them a bit of a Band-Aid solution. They would implement certain technology tools that helps with what they need today. Right? And then they kind of add on to it as they go, which is okay in terms of the function of the business, but what it doesn't help you is to protect you from what we just talked about. Right? So what happens if your server crashes? Have you done enough due diligence to check into this brand new cloud tool that your cousin raved about, but probably hasn't been in existence for only 2 months?
Okay.
They could go bankrupt next month. So all of these decisions, all of these questions need to be asked by a business as they would approach finding the vendor for whoever supplies the electricity, for example.
Okay, so let me ask you, Jane, if you weren't working with a not-for-profit, if you were to be hired on as the CEO of company XYZ, would performing an IT audit be on your list of to-dos from the start?
Absolutely. I think that is one of the most critical things you need to think about. Doesn't matter if you're a one-person organization, one-person shop in terms of small business, or a multi-billion-dollar company, because IT is what makes everything go. And the thing that makes it go, you need to make sure it's been done properly, and it caters to your business processes, and it's being maintained properly, and you're budgeting appropriately for it.
Fantastic. When we, for instance, back in the 70s and the 80s, the board used to consist of 11 marketing guys and one finance person. As we've evolved, now it seems to be 11 finance guys or girl people and one marketing person. Has IT earned a spot at this table yet?
Oh, I wanted to earn the spot at the table. And I also want to say, it's not that you need an IT guy on your board or IT
I don't want to get in trouble.
What you need is somebody who understands the role of technology. You do not need a programmer or a system administrator to be on your board, right? Actually, you probably don't want that because they're so focused on the tool itself. What you need is somebody who has the understanding of the link between what technology can do and your business.
So this then could be the place where, as you get your books audited on a periodic basis, you could have your technology audited and this report is then handed to the board so that they can make the best informed decision moving forward. Would you not agree with that? Okay.
I totally agree. I think leave the auditing, leave the provision of the services to the professionals. Have somebody on your board that understands the importance of technology to be able to make the right decisions.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So where do you see technology going? Like, it's moved so fast, and you're in the not-for-profit, and you're inside these businesses, and you're providing such great services to these not-for-profits. What do you see the next evolution? Like, if we're thinking Star Trek-ish here, what's the next step?
What's next?
Yeah.
I will be honest. Watching a lot of the newer technologies coming out in the last couple of years with things like 3D printing, which is very interesting because that allows small businesses as well as nonprofits to very quickly be able to prototype ideas. So I see technology being the main force behind accelerating the generation of an idea to the implementation of that idea. So if I'm an inventor, with technology, I could come up with a concept, use the 3D printer, prototype it, test it. If I have marketing knowledge, or actually I can go on Kickstarter or various crowd funding sites to get my project, be able to scale it bigger so I can essentially start a business a lot faster, right? So I see technology being that crucial catalyst or facilitator for that going forward. Exactly what form it's going to take, I don't know. I haven't seen any new episodes of Star Trek, so I can't tell you.
Right. But it seems, regardless of all the fantastic advances and how it's enabling us in new ways, it always seems people will always be the front line.
Yeah. The more things change, the more they remain the same. Right? So if you go back to before any of the technology has happened, back into the days of carrier pigeons, back into the days of telegraph, right? It's the people that decide what the message is. It is the people that decided what to do with the tools. It will always be the people that drives it. It's going to be the captain of the ship.
It's nice. It's nice because I see all these tests online for assessments, whatnot, that look like they're run by the computer. They're just exacted or executed by the computer, but really they're always developed by people.
Yes,
just like the technology.
Exactly. The thinking behind it is always be people. I mean, of course, if we invent AI, everything I said is probably not going to be true. So.
Right. Well, again, it's always us assessing the people component, because as computers seem like they can audit themselves by, or correct themselves or diagnose their own problems, but in the end of the day,
they can't.
We need people to do that.
Yeah.
We still need professionals who understand IT and how to run this business on another level.
Yes.
Because the computer's only as good as we are.
Yes.
Not even. It can never be quite as good.
They might be able to beat us at chess, but but I think that's more about rules and less about thinking, actually.
I was going to say the machines are always copying our great players.
Exactly. So I think the best that technology can do is to do some of the steps, menial steps that we're currently doing for us, and make that as efficient as possible. But it will not replace a human.
And I think I guess that's the message that I'm or the conclusion that I'm kind of getting from our conversation, that at the end of the day, people need not be afraid of technology.
Right.
You
Make
need to
it work
embrace it.
for you.
Make it work.
Make it work for you. Make it work smarter so you don't have to work harder.
Fantastic. Well, Jane, I want to thank you for joining us today.
No,
It's been a
thank
great
you.
conversation. And hopefully you'll come back again.
I would love to.
And I'd love to hear more about TechSoup Canada and the advances that you're going to be making with that.
Great. Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for watching Connecting Greatness, Conversations with Entrepreneurial Minds. Today's guest was Jane Zhang, the Executive Director of TechSoup Canada.